resthaven.asn.au.
The Crows take on Collingwood Saturday night at Amy Stadium, and the 5AA footy team will be there with our live and local coverage.
Over to Scotty Thompson and he kicked the goal.
Come and say hi at the 5AA Premiers Bar under the Northern Stand with Rowie, Kim Dillon and Chris McDermott broadcasting live from 5:30 with plenty of giveaways and free West End shouts ahead of the big game. The Crows and Collingwood, live and local Saturday night from 5:30 on Adelaide's #1 football station, 1395, Adelaide's 5AA.
Interactive radio. Text 1999 1395. Peter Godfrey.
Coming up to 17 minutes past 5. Let's head across the ditch to New Zealand. Selwyn Manning from livenews.co.nz is with us. Hi, Selwyn.
Yeah, hi Peter, how are you?
Good. Well, how are you guys over there? Budget day in New Zealand.
Budget day.
It's always that day that's met with, well, probably dread. A lot of the times.
I think those who like to have a bit of a tipple, with the old drink, they're probably stocking up last night, and also those who like to have a cigarette.
So it's the old cigarette and beer tax.
Yeah, the expectation is that,
All right, so the underlying thing is a deficit that the Nationals would like to get back to surplus. How quick do they want to get back in surplus?
Yes, that's absolutely right. The National-led government stressed since in its election campaign last year, really, and right through, that it must return New Zealand to economic surplus by 2014-2015 fiscal year, Peter.
Okay.
So we're expecting, and it's really talked this up, that it will be a zero budget. But what that means is that there'll be no extra spending in this budget when you look at it overall. Compared to last year. And last year's was a zero budget. So, we're looking at having things capped at 2 years ago, really. Like I mentioned there in the beginning, cigarettes and alcohol, they'll also accrue a higher rate of sales tax built in the pre-GST sale price. If you guys got big GST like ours, in the government kind of taxes areas in the sale of cigarettes. Excuse me, that will be built in prior to the GST being applied. That's the expectation. The Finance Minister, Bill English, he said last night, well, you can speculate, but people will just have to wait and see, and then he gave a bit of a smile at the end of that. Really, these are all, kind of written, Peter, that these are all kind of gestures upon which the government can argue that it seeks all Kiwis to shoulder that burden of getting New Zealand back into the black. To do that, it needs to cut its government spending. It's in a state where it really needs to work on all sorts of areas of the economy and really broaden out the sectors of the economy that are currently struggling to actually keep up with, once again, trying to shoulder that burden of the failing economy. It all goes back in some ways to the government maintaining government spending, particularly in the last 2 years when the global economic crisis was starting to kick in, that export markets were much more competitive, but most significantly, the rate of its borrowing it kind of peaked at around $1 billion a week in the spring of last year, and I think we spoke briefly on that in your program at different times as well. Now, some of that money was going to replace borrowings and debt that were at higher rates, and others were offsetting New Zealand's cash assets that were invested overseas into high rate of return type of investments. So, there's all sorts of kind of twists and tails, as you'd imagine, in such things, but generally the rate of borrowing has been considered to be extremely high, and certainly higher than New Zealand had ever experienced. So the government has got to move to actually rectify that and to get some more money back into the whole system here in New Zealand, to try and lift it out of sinking into a recession whilst maintaining a good credit rating.
So where can they look to make savings? You've spoken before about foreign affairs with cuts there. That's part of it, obviously. What other areas are sort of likely to see cuts?
Well, this is where the mystery is. It's already cut, and we already know it's planned to slash the public service. We've analysed that to the degree where we know that it's going to look right across the whole of the government apparatus to do that. The chief executives of all the ministries and all the departments have already got instructions from the government at levels that they have to cut. So that means staff cuts, but also cuts to the service that they give the public, trimming that back. Now, arguably, those essential services would probably be picked up by the private sector. So it's what we're looking for in this budget is to see what ideological shifts are there. And when we know that the Nationals are into smaller government, that the private sector moves into areas that the government once occupied. So we'll be looking at that ideological shift back to its natural kind of thinking. At the same time, the finance minister is a centrist position minister who tries to maintain a moderate degree of government and resist the ideological shifts. Bill English has always made a political career of that type of thing, but he's surrounded by a caucus and certainly a cabinet that is more right-leaning than it used to be. So the challenges there for him would be to try and actually maintain his own style of politics in this foreign minister role while addressing the needs of his caucus to move things more to the right. What we can see too is the impact, Peter, significantly already is hitting those who are struggling in New Zealand. I think we've also spoken a number of times over the last year on the impact here, and independent academics and researchers who have created a group quite some time ago now called the Child Poverty Action Group. Now, its research estimates that the number of children living in New Zealand in poverty conditions has increased to around 200,000 children. Now, that's obviously a terrible thing for any government to wake up to. But the big thing here is, why did it just wake up to that? That a lot of the policies that have been targeted to stimulate activity at the very wealthy kind of end of New Zealand's community have not trickled down. They never trickled down in the 1980s when similar reforms were put in front of the public here. And those that are out of work or struggling on lower wage regimes are really feeling the pinch, and their kids most significantly are the ones that are feeling that impact, Peter.
So you said, they're aiming for a zero budget, but does that mean that with cuts in some places there could be increased spending in areas like that to deal with poverty issues, child poverty issues particularly? Could there be some spending there?
It looks like they are going to be looking at blocking loopholes for those who have been able to accumulate wealth, like beach houses, batches, etc., that have been used as some sort of tax loophole where they've been offset. Their losses, for example, have been offset against the income of the wealthy. They're going to be looked at very hard, apparently. Likewise with cash assets, and even in the livestock areas, where the government has kind of heralded this idea that there have been loopholes going on there, and it moved to block that earlier in the year. It's that kind of thing that we're expecting to see in this budget, and this will be an area where the government can kind of stand on its platform and say, hey, we're not just caning those that are outside of who we would expect to vote for us. We're actually expecting the wealthy in New Zealand to shoulder this burden too. So it gives it a rhetorical platform, even if the numbers aren't huge in that area. So it's quite a robust kind of plan that we're expecting to see from the finance minister. At the same time, there are reports like in the New Zealand Herald this morning where the New Zealand Manufacturers and Export Association has said that it would expect the government to roll out policies that will stimulate the export market. Now, this is really hitting on an area where people just scratch when you look at the government's plan and its policies, you scratch your head, and cutting back, like we've mentioned a number of times, in that area of foreign affairs and trade. So the support overseas of identifying who and what markets are advantageous for New Zealand exporters. Well, that's in disarray, to speak in mild terms. So the export kind of sector is saying, we want that sorted out. We want some sort of strategic plan And that plan is it's a hard one to define at the moment, Peter. So that will be all eyes will be looking on that today too.
Indeed. So this will all on the budget will be handed down today. Is it early? What happens?
Around 2:00 New Zealand time.
Okay.
So the finance minister, just like in Australia, will stand up and have a bit of a yodel about what he's going to be doing.
Nice way to put it.
Yeah, and then the opposition will have a go at that, and then the leaders of all the opposition parties will also have a go at critiquing that. By mid-morning, journalists and other people from various stakeholder groups will be in a lock-up in the Parliament kind of complex, and they'll be going through all the budget detail where the finance minister and his treasury officials will be mixing and mingling with them to help them to digest what is in it and what is significant, and then the reports will start flowing out by 2.
All right.
Yeah.
And did you manage to stock up your cellar with some of the wine before the alcohol before the?
Well, I had a birthday recently, and there was a few people over, so it's pretty well stocked for wine and things. Even a few Australian ones, actually.
Oh, really?
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. What? Any come to mind straight off?
I'd have to go and...
Oh, sorry. Question without notice. Apologies.
Put it this way: it came from South Australia, I think the Barossa Valley, and had a bit of a gold medal slapped on the side of it. So.
You can't go too wrong with that, then.
And it was a Shiraz. So
there we go.
Yeah. But without getting into the commercial niceties, it was a very good job.
Delicious, fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, Selwyn. Well, enjoy digesting all that budget stuff, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Okay, mate.
Good on you, mate. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Selwyn Manning from livenews.co.nz. Head there, you'll get a lot of analysis of that budget as it comes down in New Zealand today. All right, coming up to 28 minutes past 5, Anne Stone's got a full update of news, sport and weather next. Then we can get some more of your calls on 8223 0000.
The demand for Aussie Farmers Direct home-delivered groceries is growing. From just $110,000, you could own your own business and change your lifestyle. Text the word info to 193333 and Aussie Farmers Direct will contact you. Text cost 25 cents.
Amazing businesswomen are all around us. Standing next to you at the lights. Opposite you on the train. Having coffee at the next table.